Stop working on yourself. Joel Goldsmith's radical path to effortless healing. Let us be still a moment, not to begin a process of thinking, nor to enter into words or phrases, but simply to rest in that which already is. For it is written, "Be still and know that I am God." And in that stillness, all that is required is already present. We do not bring the Spirit with us. We do not summon it. We do not awaken it by effort. It is we who awaken to it. From the beginning, the nature of the infinite way has not been in doing or in achieving or in the accumulation of knowledge. Its essence is being a recognition of that which has never been absent. The mistake of the world, and too often of the seeker, is the belief that something must be done to become spiritual, that some ladder must be climbed to reach the kingdom of God. But hear this truth: the kingdom of God is not attained, it is revealed. You see, beloved, there is no such thing as a spiritual journey in time or space. There is no distance between you and God, between you and healing, between you and supply. If there is any veil at all, it is the veil of personal effort, the belief that you must do something to become what God has already declared you to be. And so the call is not to labor, but to rest, not to struggle, but to surrender, not to build, but to behold. When the children of Israel were pursued by Pharaoh's army, the command of the Lord through Moses was not fight, but stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. That is the beginning of our spiritual healing, not in the movement of mind or will, but in stillness, in a deep and sacred resting in the I that I am. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Why is it, then, that so many of us, even in our spiritual practice, continue to labor? We say we are meditating, and yet we strive. We say we are praying, and yet we seek to influence God. We affirm, we deny, we declare, and all the while the Father has already said, "Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine." Do you see? The whole structure of our human effort stands in the way of that which is already done. The healing does not come when you get more truth. It comes when you stop trying to get anything at all. "Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils," says the prophet. Cease from the belief that the personal self must grow, must evolve, must improve. For this self, the one you would improve, is not yourself at all. It is the dream self, the hypnotic suggestion, the Adam man formed from dust. Awake thou that sleepest, and Christ shall give thee light. And so we begin, not with the climb, but with the descent, not with the reaching out, but the falling back, not with the words, but with the hush beneath them. Let the mind be still, let the body be unguarded, let the soul be receptive, for this is holy ground, and we are not here to improve the human, but to witness the divine. When Jesus sat in silence for 40 days, he was not improving his spiritual nature. He was revealing what always was. I and my Father are one, not shall be, not if I meditate enough, not if I cleanse my consciousness thoroughly. One. Now, eternally, this then is the foundation, not work, not will, not human development, but grace, the silence of recognition, the stillness of surrender. For only when you have stopped working on yourself will the self that is God reveal itself as your very being. There is a deception so subtle, so universal, that it passes for spiritual aspiration. It is the belief that you, the human self, can and must be improved. That if you study long enough, pray deeply enough, fast seriously enough, purify your habits and perfect your mind, you will become spiritual. But let me assure you of this. The self that you are striving to fix is not the self that God created. The self you are trying to purify is the image made by mind, not the likeness of spirit. From the very beginning, the serpent whispered, "Ye shall be as gods." And man believed that he was separate from God, and that by effort, by toil, by works, he might return to paradise. And so began the age-old drama of man, attempting to redeem himself through human goodness, through spiritual discipline, through the cleansing of the outer life. But what saith the Lord? By grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. It is not your effort. It is not your purity. It is not your worthiness. It is the gift of God. This is the first surrender on the spiritual path, the recognition that you cannot make yourself spiritual and that you do not need to. You are not on this path to fix a faulty self. You are here to awaken to the truth that there is no self apart from God to fix. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. This is not the improved I, the polished I, the disciplined I. It is the surrendered I, the no self, the transparency through which spirit reveals itself. The moment you believe that your efforts can achieve spiritual power, you have denied grace, and grace cannot flow where effort is enthroned. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. That is the foundation of all healing, all demonstration, all spiritual realization. And yet, how often we return to the old ways, fixing, correcting, striving, when all that is asked is recognition. Recognition that God is. Recognition that I am in God and God is in me. Recognition that there is no work to be done on the outer self, because the outer self is a shadow, a passing appearance. What needs transformation is not the behavior, not the personality, not even the mind, but consciousness. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, and that renewal does not happen by effort, but by yielding to the Spirit that already is. There is a passage in the Psalms, "The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me." Do you hear the mystery in that? The Lord will perfect, not you, not your practice, not your achievements. The Lord will perfect. That means there is nothing for you to do, nothing except to be still, to be receptive, to behold. This is the secret that religion has too often missed. God is not a rewarder of effort. God is a revealer of grace. You cannot work your way into the kingdom. You can only awaken to its presence. And it does not come through asceticism. It comes through surrender. It does not come through doing more. It comes through releasing all that believes it must do. And so we find ourselves at a crossroads in our practice. Shall we continue in the way of effort? Shall we continue to try harder, to study more, to purify, to strive, to discipline the self in order to attain God? Or shall we pause in this moment, breathe, and say, I of mine own self can do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. If we can come to that place where we Stop trying to fix the outer man and instead rest in the presence of God. Then something begins to happen that no effort could ever produce. Something begins to unfold not as result, but as revelation, not as a reward, but as the fruit of surrender. And it is here, and only here, that healing begins. It is a strange thing that we must say, and yet it must be said, even your goodness may stand between you and God. Even your desire to be holy, to be kind, to be right, can be the veil which hides the presence. This is the subtlety of the ego. It does not always wear pride or rebellion. It often comes clothed in robes of virtue, in the garments of religion, in the language of humility. But beneath that mask is still the personal self, the I, that seeks to become instead of the spirit that simply is. Do not misunderstand. There is nothing wrong in morality, in discipline, in prayer, in good deeds. But the moment you believe that these are your means to God, your path to healing or to holiness, then you have returned to the law. And Paul tells us, if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. When you seek to be good in order to be spiritual, you have divided yourself from the Spirit. You have said, there is God and there is me trying to reach him. And in that very separation, you have stepped out of the kingdom. Why callest thou me good? Said the Master. There is none good but one, that is God. When even Jesus would not accept goodness as his own, who among us dares to wear it as a badge? The ego is subtle, beloved. It says, let me help God. Let me prepare the way. Let me become worthy. But this is the same mind that said, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars. I will be like the Most High. This is not the mind of Christ. This is the mind of self. And so we must come to that painful and blessed moment when even our virtue is surrendered. When we lay our morality, our religion, our discipline, our progress on the altar and say, not my righteousness, but thine, O God. Then, and only then, does the veil begin to fall away. There are those who come to this path seeking to accumulate spiritual merit as if enlightenment were a matter of spiritual currency. They believe that by reading more books, meditating more hours, quoting more scripture, and eliminating every flaw, they will attain the presence. But the presence does not respond to your effort. It responds to your emptiness. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Let this word go deep. Spiritual attainment is not the reward for your efforts. It is the recognition that there is no you to attain it. And so, when you perform acts of goodness, let them be the overflow of a realized presence, not the ladder toward it. When you forgive, let it be because forgiveness has already been placed in you by grace, not because you are trying to obey a command. When you meditate, let it not be to reach God, but to rest in the knowing that God is already here. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. That offering is the surrender of self, the personal sense of goodness and badness alike. Only then does the Christ appear not as something you have achieved, but as what has always been. You see now why it is said, he that will save his life shall lose it, and he that will lose his life for my sake shall find it. It is not the bad life alone we must lose. It is also the good life we have built, the virtuous self, the spiritual ego, the identity that wants to help God, for God needs no help. God is fullness itself. and all that is required is that you be a witness. The Father has never said, fix yourself. He has said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. That is your identity, not to be attained, not to be improved, but to be recognized. And so we stop striving to be good. We cease trying to perfect a self that was never born of spirit. We rest from the long and fruitless labor of self-perfection and enter the Sabbath, the stillness in which it is finished. There comes a point on the path, perhaps not early, and perhaps not willingly, when something begins to break within us. Not something bad, not something sinful, but something human. The will to strive begins to dissolve. The urgency to fix, to find, to attain weakens. And in its place, a quiet knowing begins to arise. I can of mine own self do nothing. This is the turning point in all spiritual realization. Not when you have learned more, not when you have practiced harder, but when you have stopped. When the inner striving yields to a stillness that was always there, waiting behind your thoughts, waiting beneath your prayers. It is written, in returning and rest shall ye be saved, in quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. But how few believe that. Even among the spiritually minded, there remains the subtle effort to reach God, to bring about healing, to demonstrate truth. Yet all the while, the voice within whispers, my grace is sufficient for thee. And still we strive. There was a time early in this ministry when I believed it was my knowledge of truth that healed. And so I studied deeply. I prepared. I thought carefully. I would enter the healing room with thoughts of God and spirit and perfection. And sometimes, yes, there were results. But then came the day when I had no thought to think, no truth to declare, and yet healing took place. And from that day forward, I began to learn the presence does not require your effort. It requires your availability. The Master never healed by effort. He did not treat fever with words, nor blindness with affirmations. He simply said, thy faith hath made thee whole, or stretch forth thy hand, or sometimes nothing at all. Why? Because the Father within him did the works. And so I learned to sit hour after hour, sometimes without a single thought, until something stirred within me. Not a thought, not an emotion, but a presence, a subtle shift, a breath not my own, a weight falling away. And then I knew the healing was done. This is the way of the infinite way. Not the way of doing, but the way of being still. Not the effort to create truth, but the humility to witness truth revealed. This is why we say healing is not made to happen. Healing happens when effort ceases and awareness begins. Now, you may ask, how shall I surrender all effort? How shall I let go when my need is great? The answer is not in trying to surrender. Even that is a form of doing. The answer is in recognizing that surrender has already happened the moment you became still, the moment you stopped leaning on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. When you truly see that the Spirit of God is present here and now, that it knows your need before you ask, that it worketh even while you rest, then surrender is no longer something you do. It is something that occurs in you. It is the dissolving of the personal self into the silence of divine consciousness. And in that silence, you discover what you could not attain through 1,000 affirmations, the peace that passeth understanding, the healing that flows without cause, without effort, without process. You do not make the sap flow through the vine. You do not teach the sun to rise. In the same way, you do not bring about healing. You recognize that the life of God is your life, and that life is whole. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Not more teaching, not more labor, but rest. This is the turning point. This is the inner Sabbath. This is where the work ends and grace begins. When the striving has ceased and the silence has come, then something begins to move, not by your doing, not by your thought, but by a presence that goes before you. And that presence is grace. Now, listen closely. Grace is not a reward. It is not given because you have fasted, nor because you have meditated long enough, nor because you have behaved righteously. Grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Grace is not earned, it is revealed. It is the very nature of the presence of God, always present, always perfect, but unknown to the personal self that seeks to deserve it. Grace cannot be worked up. It cannot be called down. It cannot be manipulated. Grace is, and it is functioning even now. It is functioning in you, through you, as you, but only in the degree that you no longer try to perform the work yourself. It is God that worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. And what is that pleasure? That you come into union with the allness that already is. The moment you stop trying to fix the body, fix the mind, fix the world, the moment you stop trying to become spiritual, then grace can do what no human power has ever done. For grace performs the work, not because you asked it to, but because it is its very nature to unfold perfection. Let us look again at the Master's life. He never once said, I healed this man. He said, the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. And again, of mine own self, I can do nothing. This is the confession of every mystic. There is no power in the person. There is no wisdom in the mind. There is no healing in the will. All things are fulfilled through grace, and grace does not act by changing conditions. Grace acts by revealing truth. The conditions dissolve, not because you have made them dissolve, but because in the presence of truth, the lie is no longer sustained. As ice melts in the presence of sunlight, so too do fear, disease, lack, and limitation melt in the presence of realized truth. Now you may ask, what must I do to bring this grace into operation? And the answer is nothing, not in the human sense, not in the sense of works or efforts. The most that can be done is to live in the attitude of listening for the still small voice, not to speak truth to it, but to hear truth from it. The word does not return void, but it is not your word. It is his word. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. That word is not audible to the human ear, but it comes as a deep assurance, a sacred knowing, a presence that dissolves even the appearance of conflict. In this way, healing takes place not because of treatment, not because of right thinking, not because of spiritual effort, but because grace has moved in consciousness. And where grace is realized, the work is finished. He performeth that which is appointed for me. That is the secret. He performs it. When you rest in that realization, not merely speak it, not believe it intellectually, but rest in it, you will find that the outer conditions begin to reflect a harmony that was already present within. You will see that grace is never delayed. It is never partial. It does not withhold. It is ever present, but hidden to the mind that insists on acting. To live by grace, then, is to live without resistance, without fear, without planning, without defense. It is to live in the quiet confidence that God knows, God is, God does, and you are simply the instrument through which this is revealed. Let us then return again and again to this truth until it becomes our daily walk. Not I, but Christ. Not my word, but His. Not my healing, but His presence known. Not my prayer, but His breath uttered within the silence of being. This is the secret of the spiritual life. This is the end of effort. This is the way of grace. Healing is not the goal. This may be the most startling statement one can make in a world obsessed with improvement, correction, and progress. But if you will sit with it, not analyze it, but sit with it in silence, it will begin to dawn upon you as the core revelation of the infinite way. The object of the spiritual path is not to fix the outer condition, but to realize the presence of God. Too long have we made spiritual practice a means to an end, a more peaceful life, a better body, a fuller supply, a greater understanding. But the moment there is a goal outside of God, we have stepped out of the kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Not sought, not worked for, not demonstrated by personal power, added. When you pray for healing, you are often still in duality. You are seeing something in opposition to God, disease, discord, danger, and attempting to bring God to bear upon it, as if God were a power over another power. But hear this eternal truth. God is not a power over. God is the only power. The moment you see two powers, truth and error, health and disease, spirit and matter, you have left the infinite and entered into the realm of appearance. And so you see, it is not wrong to desire healing, but it is immature. It is the prayer of the child, Father, give me something. But the Son prays differently. The Son prays, not my will, but thine be done. The Son does not seek things. He abides in the presence of the Father, and all things are fulfilled in that presence. Spiritual healing does not come by directing God to fix what appears broken. It comes by lifting our consciousness above appearances until we behold the truth that nothing was ever broken. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. This is not denial. This is not pretending. This is not metaphysical affirmation. It is seeing with the single eye, the eye of Christ, through which harmony is already present. This is why healing is never the goal, because to make healing the goal is to remain in the belief of separation. It is to say, here I am in lack or disease, and there is God, who might help me if I approach rightly. But there is no here and there. There is no separation. The moment you know I and the Father are one, the issue dissolves, not because you healed it, but because you awakened from it. Think of the Master. He did not look at Lazarus and begin affirming life. He simply said, Lazarus, come forth. He did not treat blindness. He spat on the ground, made clay, and said, go wash. Why? Because the Master saw no disease. He saw no sinner. He saw no condition to correct. He saw only God appearing as that individual. And in that seeing, the condition had no further substance. He beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven, To live spiritually is to release even the desire for healing and replace it with the desire to know God aright. And that desire itself will one day be swallowed up in the realization that God already is, not far off, not waiting to be summoned, but here, now, whole, complete. Let us stop seeking healing as a goal. Let us stop trying to change conditions. Let us sit in the silence, not to remove symptoms, but to behold the face of the invisible. Let us make our goal the realization of omnipresence. And then, if the body changes, let it change. If the finances shift, let them shift. But even if they do not, we shall have found the pearl of great price, the inner awareness that underneath are the everlasting arms. Healing is the fruit of that tree, not the root. The root is realization. The root is spiritual identity. The root is the Word made flesh in you, and the fruit appears in ways the world cannot understand. But the soul always recognizes, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That secret place is not reached through effort, it is entered through surrender. And in that place, the desire for healing fades, because the presence itself is sufficient. The moment we cease striving, the moment we give up our efforts to heal or become or improve, something begins to happen. And that something is not of man. It does not arise from decision, nor from calculation, nor from personal wisdom. It comes unannounced, and it speaks in ways not audible to the human ear. It is the voice. It is the spirit. And it leads not where the mind would go, but where the soul is already prepared to be. To live spiritually is to live without a personal plan. It is to live without human foresight, not recklessly, not carelessly, but without that grasping mind that says, I must go here, I must do this, I must become that. For what saith the word? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Not you, not your schedule, not your ambition, but the Lord shall direct. This is the way I have lived my entire ministry, not by design, not by ambition, not by any desire to build a work or a name or a teaching, but by listening. Sometimes the direction comes clearly, go to this place, speak to this soul, write this message. Sometimes it comes as a gentle unfolding, a movement without thought, an action without motive. And only after the fact do I realize the significance. It is in this way that I found myself in South Africa long before I knew of the hundreds who were waiting there. It is in this way that books were written, not out of intent, but out of compulsion, words that seem to pour forth not from me, but through me. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. You see, the moment you plan your life, you have declared that you are the one who knows, but only the Spirit knows. Only the Father seeth the end from the beginning. And so long as we attempt to manage our affairs, even our spiritual affairs, we are not yet resting in the infinite. It is not that you must abandon every appointment or obligation. It is not that you must sit passively and wait for thunder from the heavens. It is only that inwardly you become unbound. You say, Father, where thou art, I will be. What thou speakest, I will do. And if there is no word today, then you rest. And if there is movement, you follow. Not because you have decided, but because you have yielded. This is the way of the Christ. The Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. Even Jesus did not direct his own ministry. He did not heal whom he wished, nor speak when he chose. He waited. And when the word came, he moved, and the works were done. Let this mind be in you also, the mind that does not presume, that does not dictate, that does not will, but waits. And in the waiting, a strange thing happens. Life becomes simple. Fear diminishes. The burden lifts, for you no longer carry your life, you are carried. How many problems arise because we have planned too well? We have created futures in our minds and then demanded that God fulfill them. But there is no peace in that, and there is no power in it. Power flows only where self-will is silent and God is known. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Now, you may ask, what shall I do with my days? And the answer is, live them simply, quietly, obediently. Do not force your way into spiritual work or into healing or into service. Let it come to you. And when it comes, do it without question. And when it is still, remain still. One day, the voice will speak. This is the way. Walk ye in it. And you will walk, not because you plan to, but because the presence within you moved. And then you shall say, surely goodness and mercy have followed me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We have spoken of stillness, of surrender, of the letting go of personal effort. But how shall we live in this new way? How shall we walk without walking, pray without words, heal without intention? What does it mean to live in non-doing and yet remain fully responsive to the Spirit? The world believes that to live is to strive, but the spiritual life begins when that belief is laid aside, and we discover that the most powerful activity in heaven and earth is not done by man, but by God. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. That is the holy inactivity that does not resist, yet overcomes, that does not struggle, yet accomplishes, that does not speak, yet heals. Let us be clear, non-doing is not laziness, nor neglect, nor passivity. It is the supreme alertness of a soul that listens, watches, and abides. It is the end of self-will and the beginning of divine impulse. It is the refusal to initiate and the willingness to respond to what? To the still small voice that speaks from the center of being. You cannot live this way by trying. You cannot try to be still. The very act of trying is noise. But you can become aware of the silence that is already present. That silence is the altar of the Lord. That silence is the temple not made with hands, where God is the light and there is no darkness at all. Into that temple, no human voice enters. Into that silence, no effort can follow. And so the practice begins, if we can call it practice, with simple inwardness. You sit, you do not speak, you do not ask, you do not think, you do not even expect. You simply wait, not with anxiety, but with reverence. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are resting in what already is. Perhaps 5 minutes go by, perhaps 15. No thought arises, no voice is heard. Yet something has occurred. You have touched the invisible. You have communed with the unseen. You have entered the presence, even if the presence has not yet spoken. And something in you has been washed, refreshed, renewed, not because you acted, but because you ceased to act. This is the sacred non-doing. Stand in awe and sin not. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still, not in public prayer, not in ritual, not in the repetition of affirmations, but in stillness. And from this stillness, when the time is fulfilled, words may come, an impression may be given, or perhaps nothing at all, and yet healing follows. Clarity arises. Peace takes form in the very atmosphere of your life. In this stillness, you may feel a weight lift from your shoulders, as if a burden has dropped that you did not know you were carrying. Or you may breathe in a way you have never breathed before, a breath that seems to come from the soul. Or you may simply know that you know without knowing how, and this is enough. Now, someone may ask, but how do I know if I'm doing it right? The question itself reveals that effort has crept in. In sacred non-doing, there is no measuring, there is no comparing, there is only being. And it is in that being that transformation takes place. Be still and know, not try, not fix, not earn, just be and know. You may begin with moments, and those moments will stretch until your day is filled with pauses and your mind becomes quiet without force. Then you will discover that you are not the doer at all, that the Father within you, he doeth the works, that grace performeth that which is appointed for you, that the Christ within you is the light of your day and the substance of your body, that God is, this is the way of the infinite way. It is not the way of thinking. It is not the way of effort. It is not the way of works. It is the way of revelation. And revelation comes only when the self is still, when the outer man is silent, and the inner temple is open. Let your heart become that temple. Let your soul be that altar. Let your stillness be that holy place in which the presence of God is known, not through effort, but through surrender, not through doing, but through being. And then, without lifting a finger, you will behold the miracle of God's work done in you, through you, and as you. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. And in that silence, the healing takes place.